Hey, and welcome to this week's episode of Course Correction. I'm your host, Michelle, and this week I sat down to talk with Benir Pierre, an intuitive money magician or manifestation coach, and we just kind of talked about not just manifestation, because I think that's such a deep topic. I mean, there's no way that we could really dig into all of that in our 50 minutes of discussion. But we talked about how to set new routines and how to manifest from a place of depression. And we just had a really great talk about, some of my mom guilt and how I could kind of get through some of that. So if you're interested in finding out about how I did that and finding out more about Benir Pierre and seeing how maybe she worked some of that magic on me, just keep listening. I spend a lot of time listening to personal development on YouTube, but that's
hmm
like number one thing that's out there is what do you do in a time of contrast or when you're not, when things are not low, but I mean, when you're having a human experience. So
Absolutely.
I guess, so my first question is same question I asked before, kind of. Um, what do you do as a powerful manifestor, somebody who's manifesting all the time? What do you do when you come into a tough spot like what you kind of are experiencing right now? How do you sort of balance your uh, positive core with that natural feeling of sadness or however you, I wouldn't say personify it, but
For
how do
sure.
you kind of cope with that?
Um, I think the first thing, honestly, is allowing yourself to feel how you feel, but also recognizing that while you might feel that way, even that is ushering you into a manifestation. Like I mentioned before, I think a lot of times we have this perception that when you're a manifester, it means that things are always roses and everything's always amazing. But as a manifester, I'm able to recognize that even in the times when the path does not feel great, my darkest moments have ushered me into the most amazing blessings I could ask for. So I think it's just a matter of not giving up hope when things don't look the way you want them to.
Yeah, and I think that's like the first thing we go to is giving up the hope and
Yeah,
saying, I just knew it was never going to work out.
right. And that's the problem. I always talk about the tendency to manifest from your fear instead of from your faith. And if you instantly go to, I knew it wasn't going to work out, well, that's why it didn't work out because you knew it wasn't going to work out.
Right.
I found that, like, even now, it's funny because people are like, how are you doing? I've confided in a few people about what's been happening. It has been very hard for my family, but the only answer I have is that I'm grateful. And I had a friend reach out and she said, you don't have to pretend. It's okay to feel how you feel. And at the moment, I was in the hospital with my mother in law, watching them give her all these meds, trying to get her breathing under control. And I'm like, the truth is that actually is how I feel. I'm grateful right now for a job that I get to set my own hours and I don't have to worry about being fired because I missed time to be with my family. I'm grateful for the opportunity to support my partner by being here with her mother. I'm grateful that she's still with us. And that even though right now she may be suffering, she didn't die. And so I think that it's a matter of finding those small things to be grateful for, even when it feels like shit is falling apart.
Man, I tell you what, it's crazy that you said that because that's kind of just how I feel, like I've been kind of in I don't even want I'm going to say low. I've been feeling kind of low. But it's mostly just because, I still am working for someone else. And, I keep saying, okay, so this is what I want. I want to be independent of that income so that I can set my own schedule, so that I can, if I want to take my kids to do something during the summer, I can go do that. I don't have to worry about, well, did I take the time off? Is someone else going to be there to cover, those kind of things that I don't really want to worry about. And it's hard when you're kind of still in it to find the positives. But that's just what keeps coming up for me is, be mindful of your thoughts. Be mindful of finding the gratitude in every day. Like I keep seeing the number 54 over and over again. So every time I'm like, oh my gosh, again, because every time I'm like, oh, I have a moment where I'm like, oh, I hate this. And then I'll see it and I'm like, okay, I get it. It's kind of like, I guess my thing is, it is hard to kind of to find the gratitude. So what do you suggest to your clients who, like me, are kind of in a limbo space, like almost where they want to be, but not quite there yet?
Mm-hmm. So, gratitude really is the best way to manifest. It keeps your vibration high even when you're not feeling high. And so, that is one thing, usually I say if there's resistance, then examine that, and maybe you shouldn't push past the resistance, really examine why the resistance is there. But honestly, for that one, it's just something that you have to do. And I actually was just speaking with a client a few days ago about setting up routines so that when you have those moments, it becomes so second nature that you don't have to force yourself. And so, I mean, no matter what is happening, even for the person who is currently living under a bridge, I've definitely been through many periods of depression in my lifetime, and it seemed like everything was falling apart. But there is always something to be grateful for. And literally, that is my motto. In all things, give thanks. And as long as I can find that one thing to be grateful for, it's raining outside, I'm stuck in a snowstorm, but I'm grateful for this coat. Like whatever that one thing is, holding on to gratitude. And a lot of people, tend to say it can always be worse, but I'm of the mindset that it can always get better.
Mm.
If I'm here to complain about it, that means that it can always get better. It really
Right.
is a matter of shifting your perspective.
It really is. And today, like I said, because yesterday I was like, well, last week I had a day that was like kind of has been signature for me as a person, because I grew up in a household where if something was not going right, you just had a meltdown. So that's kind of what I saw. That's what I did. So I've been trying to teach myself and, kind of come up with new ways to react to those triggers, just doing shadow work, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And um, so last week I had a bad day. And so I thought about it then. I said, I'm not going to do this to myself because it's really me doing it to me. Every
Mhm.
time I have a bad day or I feel bad, it's not to say it's not real, but I don't have to have those reactions to it. You know what I mean? I can, like you said, I can say, okay, well, I might be tired. I may have a lot to do, but I asked for this work. I'm grateful for that. You know what I mean? So yesterday I had a tough day, but I watched myself and I made sure that my reactions were ones that were more intentional as opposed to just like, okay, I'm just gonna lay in the street. You know what I mean? Like just real dramatic and
Mhm.
X stuff. So I said, I'm gonna try for 30 days to do that every time I would have the instant reaction to either complain about something or feel negatively. Like today, they ordered us some sandwiches from this place called Plantation, which, okay. But we had like watermelon and on Juneteenth of all the days. But anyway, it wasn't really that great. But I just said I appreciate that it was here, as opposed to the usual, oh, this was terrible, et cetera, et cetera. So I also, which was interesting that you brought up routines, because I said I want to set new routines for myself because I feel like that's part of everything. How you feel balanced is just making sure that you're still doing
those things that you set for yourself. So do you have
Absolutely.
any routines that you go to like every day or weekly?
Absolutely. I both. I have routines, and any clients that work with me, that's one of the first things that we do is set up their daily rituals.
Mm.
Um, I find that it's necessary. And I want to go back just a little bit to what you said about having a bad day. In
Yeah.
this conversation, I've been contemplating doing a video about how to manifest when you're depressed.
Okay.
And this actually is the nudge that I needed.
Yeah.
But, I think the whole idea of having a bad day, even that is where we can start, because a lot of times we wake up in the morning and it's shitty. We feel like crap, woke up on the wrong side of the bed, whatever, and we've decided that it's a bad day, but really we just had a bad moment. And
Yes.
so really is a matter of making sure that we truly are taking it moment by moment. I was on vacation with my partner last fall, and what Spirit spoke was that every breath deserves its own celebration.
Mm.
And that is something that I've had to keep with me, especially in those moments. I mean, in the moments of joy, it certainly is a reminder to be present and, really enjoy the moment. But even in those moments when things really are not great, it's been a reminder that, yes, this breath deserves its own celebration, but it is also just one breath. We have so many breaths in a day. And so, even if there are just a few glimpses of hope or just a few things that day that make you feel good, the whole day doesn't have to go to shit because you had some bad moments in the day.
Right. Right. And that's been the thing for me is if one thing, it's like a domino effect. If one thing happens, I'm like, oh, great. You know what I mean? And so the next thing, which they're not major things, but because you're already in this space of negativity or just feeling abused by the universe, which is really what it is. It's like for me, I'm like, oh, I'm just being so abused. And really it's not, but that's your mindset at the time. But one thing happens and you're like, oh no. And then the second thing, you're like, see, that's what it was. The straw that broke the camel's back, and then the rest of the day you might try to pick it up, but then it's like once you set your mind on, like you said, this is a quote unquote bad day, it is,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what you said. And really, it's so crazy, just the whole thing anyway, just being able to speak your life and to manifest these things, because you really can say, when I go home, I'm going to do XYZ, XYZ, XYZ. And that's just what you do. So you don't have to like I just found somebody had put food in a drawer and a towel on top of it. Why? I don't know. Now, at one point that would have sent me on a spiral of, I'm working, I'm trying to keep the house together for you guys, and this is what you do. But I didn't do that. Because like I said, I'm really trying to be more intentional about my responses to what used to trigger me. So I
Mm-hmm.
just cleaned it up. And I asked them, I said, who did this? Don't do that. That's really all it needs to be. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
need much more than that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think a lot of times it certainly can be easier said than done, but
Mhm.
that's why it's a practice. This whole
Mhm.
thing is a practice. And sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. But even the times that we don't get it right, we can just do better next time.
Right. And I think that's a lot of it is that people often feel like they can't try again. You know, once you kind of become this person who gets mad about stuff or, whatever it is, you always feel like, well, that's just me. But, it doesn't have to be because, like you said, it's practice. You can try, you can do something different. Several years ago, I didn't know I was going to be doing this, but I
Mm-hmm.
said, I really want to have a career in media. And no one is giving me a job at this point. So I said, how can I make a career in media? So I just did it myself.
For sure.
So, I mean, you really can just change things that way. And I know you mentioned to me a while back before we talked about, having to reschedule at first, about having a session with you on aligning my chakras.
Mm-hmm.
So can you explain a little bit to me about what that would be like?
Yes. So, um, when we talk about chakras, I find that so many people in the spiritual community make it seem like the shit is so like mystical and out there and magical, and only certain people get to possess knowledge.
Right.
Okay, so let's demystify all that. When we
Okay.
talk about chakras, really that is just your energy centers. And
Mm,
so we have many energy centers, but usually when we are talking about, aligning your chakras, generally we're talking about your main seven. And each of your energy centers, so these are places in your body where energy is held and it affects other parts of your body. And so you have your root chakra, you have your sacral chakra, your solar plexus, your heart chakra, your throat chakra, your third eye, and your crown. And when there is misalignment anywhere in your energy body, then it gives certain symptoms. And so I actually was just working with a client yesterday who has been having digestive issues. She's been having fertility issues, but a lot of those things, the doctors can't find anything wrong because
mm,
for her, it really is energetic that also is showing up for her in a lack of creativity. It's also showing up for her in an ability to conceptualize and visualize what she wants, but she's really struggling with actually grounding that in reality and birthing that into her current existence. And
yeah.
so, chakra work that we did, there's a number of things that we do. And so sometimes it truly is just having a conversation and helping shift your awareness of certain things. Sometimes it actually is doing certain physical exercises that move energy, depending on where the blockage is, that tends to be where we focus. I've had clients who come to me because they are dealing with issues with boundaries, and that can be both solar plexus and heart chakra. And so we work on helping them establish healthier boundaries. But they notice that in the process of them establishing healthier boundaries, they are now starting to relieve some issues with their digestion, for example. Actually, real life example that happened in my life a few weeks ago. I was talking to my partner, and I don't remember exactly what happened, but something came up about her job, and instantly her stomach started hurting.
Mm.
And
You speaking to my life.
I, I was going to say, I'm sure that is absolutely something that many can relate to. And so, your solar plexus, that is your I will center, that is your I do center. And that is, I think of that as like your yang. So, a lot of times as strong women, we're so comfortable operating from that energy of doing, but sometimes we struggle with simply being. And so we just had a conversation about things that needed to shift so that she was more comfortable just relaxing into who she was and not feeling like she always had to push past doors that were shut. And as soon as we finished talking, she noticed that her stomach stopped hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And so it literally can be something as simple as having a conversation and examining where there are blocks. For other clients, I do crystal healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the gifts that I have, I can actually feel where there's a blockage. And, with my clients, I do send them crystals and we do a lot of work with that. And so a simple meditation using certain crystals that are placed over your energy center. So it just kind of depends on where the block is and what the specific client is needing. But it doesn't have to be all that serious. There are a lot of people who are like, oh, you need Reiki. Reiki is simply someone using their energy and helping you move energy. But a lot of those things you can really do for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. But like working with somebody like you is giving them the instructions maybe that they can also use after your session.
Absolutely. So I think that is, I have a lot of clients who come to me and they're like, hey, I have been working with someone forever, and here are some things that she does for me, but I really don't know what to do when I get stuck. I don't
Mm.
believe that. I am all about empowering clients to be able to work with or without me. And so my job is to actually give you the tools so that you can do these things, whether I'm sitting right there with you or whether I am off in Bali speaking.
Right. Right. Do you do a lot of speaking engagements?
I do. I do. Have not yet spoken in Bali, but we are absolutely putting that on the list.
Well, you just said it, so now it's so.
Exactly.
So I thought it was interesting that you talked about boundaries too, because actually I had a conversation with my mom today, and we talked about, we were talking about boundaries. She bought me this book that's like Boundaries with Kids, and I think she has one. So, we just kind of, because we haven't always had good boundaries. So that's something that we kind of share together and start to kind of learn together. But what would you say to like boundaries in business? Like as far as entrepreneurship goes, like do you think it's necessary to have boundaries there?
Hell yeah. I think it's necessary to have boundaries everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think that when we talk about boundaries, a lot of people think that boundaries are to keep other people out, but really boundaries are all for you. And
Mm-hmm.
so boundaries are knowing, I know for me personally, it started with being able to recognize I do a lot of energy work.
Mm-hmm.
Much of my work is focused on moving energy, and then the parts that aren't are focused on strategy, which is mentally draining. And so I had to recognize that it's not okay for me to meet with clients every day. And
Yeah.
so having certain days of the week that are just for me, days that are, for me to paint or for me to meditate or just be one with myself and not have to pour into clients. Boundaries around not responding to people who message me in my inbox when I have a website, when I have a scheduling link, when I have, for my personal clients, I work with them through a project portal as well as Voxer. And so not feeling obligated to jump and grab my phone every time it dings. And so some of these boundaries are not things that I felt the need to communicate to clients. I find it so funny when people, decide that they're going to change something in business and feel the need to send an announcement on their social media. Like, you guys need to stop inboxing me. No, boo, you need to stop responding.
Yeah.
So, I think boundaries are absolutely required. Boundaries around what is professional and not having idle conversation that is not affecting my bottom line and is not helping your healing. I think it's important to have boundaries, like I said, in every area of life, but absolutely in business.
Most definitely. So like it sounds to me like, and I know this about you because that's like the first thing I noticed. You have a lot of systems and processes, and that's so good. And that's something that I have never really been great at, but it's something I'm working on.
Mhm.
So I catch myself when people it will inbox me, I'm like, you need to send me an email. So I'm like, that's the first thing. But what would you say to a client who just came to you just as a mess and was like, oh well, I feel like it's their fault for inboxing me constantly. You would just respond just the way that you did. You just say you need to stop inboxing them or stop responding to those inboxes. Just be straight and to the point about what you're going to do. Is that what you would
Oh,
say?
absolutely. I'm very much a straight shooter. I'm in Aries. so I don't bite my tongue. And so,
Yeah.
one assignment that I have clients do is actually to write out their boundaries.
Mhm.
And, a lot of times we think of boundaries and really we are only looking at one area. We know what our boundaries are physically.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't.
No.
We tend to know what our boundaries are emotionally, but I have them write their boundaries across the board. So physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, materially. Do you like loaning people your stuff? Do you like when people call and ask you for money? And I think for one, it's helpful so that you can give a complete no. Because if you can't say no, then your yes means nothing.
Mm,
And so, that certainly is the first step. And I have them list out what things do you like in this particular category and what things do you not like, and really get clear, because a lot of times people disrespect our boundaries, one, because we've never communicated the boundary, and two, because we don't even know where the line is until they cross it. And then we want to snap or we want to get upset, and they didn't even realize that that was a line for us.
right. And that's not really fair, because you can't expect people to read your mind and know what your boundaries are if you haven't clearly set them.
Absolutely. And what may be a boundary for you may not be for someone else. And
Right.
that's absolutely okay. I've had some clients who feel guilty about saying no because they feel that what they are experiencing, or what they dislike, is something that people tend to like. Really simple example is, someone touching you,
Mm,
and a lot of people are okay with that, and some people are not. I'm absolutely one who is not, and I will let you know, keep your hands to yourself. I don't understand why your hand needs to be on me to communicate what you're saying.
right.
And a lot of people feel guilty for expressing that boundary because other people tend to be okay with that. But it doesn't matter what other people enjoy. I'm sure that, there are some people who enjoy being called at 6 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, don't do that to me either.
Mm-mm. No, sir. You'll get straight up ignored, or I'm gonna bite your head off. One
My
of the
phone
two.
is on do not disturb, and all of my friends know. um do not call me before 11 a.m. Even my mama. The only person who can call me before 11, it either needs to be an emergency or you need to be my partner, and even she knows. Just
Right.
don't do
I listened to something a while back. It was Oprah, and she was just talking about how she had the disease to please, is what she calls it. And I
it.
think that is part of that, not being able to say no is just like your concern is less for yourself and more for how this person is going to feel about you after you
Mhm.
have set your boundary. And I think that is just like, I want to call it a terrible way to be, but you'll continue to be displeased
Mhm.
because it doesn't please you, it doesn't serve you. But because you're afraid to, you know, have this authentic voice that says, I don't like that, people are just going to keep running you over and running. Because, I was like that for a long time. Well, I'll just do it. I'll just say yes to it. I'll just go ahead and do it. And then I'll be like, why did I agree to this? I mean, but I know why. It's because I didn't want to disappoint the other party. But what about me? You know?
Mhm. Mhm.
So I want to know how you got started doing this and how you got so good at saying no.
um well, I think honestly I had to recognize that either I'm saying no to me or I'm saying no to them.
Hmm.
And so if I have to say no to somebody, I'm tired of saying no to me. I said no to me for so long. I was very much a doormat. I was very much a people pleaser. And everything that I did was based on how it would be perceived. And that is it's a prison. It's a very hard life to live. And I just got sick and tired of it. Um, I think that it's still something that I work through,
Mhm.
because while I may have very firm boundaries with most clients, I have some clients that I've worked with for a while, and maybe I set a new rule, but I allow them to keep doing things the way that they always have and don't communicate that rule. That's my fault. And so, I certainly still am working through honoring my boundaries and honoring myself. But I think that, the short answer of it is I just got tired of saying no to me
Yeah.
and yes to people who did not give a damn if I said no to me. I think that we get stuck in this cycle of feeling like we have to be nice. And I think
Mhm.
nice is complete BS. I would rather be kind than to be nice. Nice is based on someone's perception of me, and the very actions that they think are nice. If I choose me and say no, then all of a sudden they don't think I'm nice. Well, I would rather be kind and respected than for people to think I'm nice and a doormat.
Yeah, man. That is so important. Gosh, that is really, really, that really resonates with me because they don't, again, like I think we both said this, they don't really care. What they want is what they want.
Mhm,
And that's why they're coming to you and asking you for it because probably in the past you've said yes to it. Or,
mhm,
you give off a vibe that says that you'll agree to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge if they ask you to.
mhm, mhm.
I mean, I think that's part of the human condition, and even like you said, you're still working through that sometimes. I think we all are, even especially me with my kids. They look at me and I'm like, ugh, instantly, I'm like, okay, yes. But that's why my mom bought me that book because she said, I don't want you to be the same type of mom that I have always been, which is
Mhm.
yes, 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 because I love you. Yes, yes. But you're so empty. Like I watch my mom still, she doesn't take care of herself the way she should. She doesn't pamper herself. And that is like something that I'm drilling into me right now.
Mhm.
Because for so many years I'm like, well, I'll just put myself on the back burner and I'll just do what I have to do for these other people who I'm responsible for, or who's other people who I think I'm responsible for. And when it comes to adults, you're not beholden to that. Now the kids, they can't eat without me. So that's just something that I'm
But
gonna
even
have to do.
that, I'm not sure that we are responsible for even our kids.
Yeah.
Um, we certainly have a responsibility to them, but
Yeah.
I think that, even that is something that a lot of people get stuck with because they feel like they have to put their kids first.
Hmm.
One of the first assignments that I do with clients, I call it an energy audit. And essentially, we look at where energy is being wasted or where there is not a good return for the energy that's being invested, and we look at ways to shift that. And so sometimes it's cutting off the drainage in the first place. If there's someone who just doesn't even have the capacity to ever pour back into you, maybe that's not a relationship that serves you. Sometimes it's a matter of pouring less. And so I have one client. She's actually getting ready to move, and she has 4 kids. Her youngest two are 1 and 3,
Mm.
and we absolutely made sure that we did some shift in the way that energy was used and gave them responsibility. And the great thing is that a lot of times kids actually want to have ownership of certain things. And so by helping her give them ownership of certain tasks, and of course, like you said, maybe they can't feed themselves, but there are certain things that they probably can do that will take a load off of you and just help balance that energy. So, I definitely am a firm believer that we have to pour from our overflow. And the only way to do so is to make sure that your cup is filled first. So, if that means waking up before the kids and doing your daily ritual and getting yourself together, if that means, taking a moment and saying, hey, mommy needs a moment. It reminds me of that commercial. It was a woman, and I don't know what it was for. She was eating something in the bathroom and
Mm.
had the door locked, and they were like, "Mommy," and she's like, "It's Dad," because
Oh,
somehow kids won't bother dad, but they
Right.
always want to run to mom. And it is absolutely okay to tell even your children no.
Yes. And you're right. And I feel like that's one of the things that keeps coming up for me because it's something that I need to be more intentional about because I have severe mom guilt, just simply saying no, simply trying to, like, if I want to come in my room and put on records and just relax, somebody shows up and I'm like, ugh. And it's not wrong for me to want that
That's
space,
right.
and that time just for me to, because music is really what gets my vibration right. For me, if I can have music in my ears at all time, I'm
Yeah.
perfect, you know? But
Yeah.
that's almost an impossibility just because I have to go to work or I have to go interact with others. So when I come home, I'm like, all right, I want to be right here. I
Mm.
want, I don't want to bring negativity in because I like to just kind of shake all that out. But it's so hard because the very first thing it's I need, I want, I love you, I miss you. Guess what happened today? And I'm like, okay, just give me a few minutes because I honestly I can't give you the attention that you require because my brain is going like 90 miles a minute because I first of all just got off work or I've been in traffic or whatever, you know what I mean? And you really, really need those moments. And it's so crazy because so many moms, even friends of mine, are like, well, I feel like your kids probably feel neglected. I'm like, I doubt that seriously because I spend probably 75% of my energy on them. If it was currency, they have the most of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting because I definitely had moments, and I don't have children. So, maybe I am not the most informed. But the thing is, if you were stuck in traffic and it took an extra 5 minutes to get home, your kids wouldn't have died. They would have been okay. And
Thank
so I definitely used to take a moment and just sit in the car when I got home. And sometimes that moment would end up lasting an hour. But that's what I needed to do before I walked in and dealt with everyone else. And so, even if it is just having a moment to meditate so that you can transition from being at work and being needed to going home and being needed,
you.
or maybe, if your children are old enough, then maybe it really is having a conversation. We always say that you teach people how to treat you. Well, the same thing with your kids, you teach them how to interact with you. And so even if it's a moment of, when mommy gets home, I just need a minute, and setting boundaries around that. So, I need until 7:05, for example, and then at 7:30 it's your time. But
Right.
being really clear, making sure that they still get what they need, they still get their time, but that you get what you need too. Because if you don't, I'm sure you can relate. If you don't get what you need, I'm sure that makes you snappy. I'm sure
Yeah,
that you're not fun to be around. I'm sure that, they probably get yelled at for things that have nothing to do with them because you haven't had a moment to decompress.
absolutely. And that's kind of the thing is like even to say that out loud, people look at you like, oh, and it's like, no, this is my truth. Like if I don't have the time I need to balance myself, the whole house is going to be turned upside down.
For sure.
And there's nothing wrong with saying that. I think that's one thing we have to get out of as a society is because a lot of this mom guilt and, moms not getting enough time is a societal thing. Because
Mhm.
I'm like, I have never seen somewhere where children really think they are more important than parents. Because
Mhm.
I'm like, do you know that you can't even come here without your parents? So at some point you need to take and realize, wow, this person brought me here. I should afford this person the 5 minutes. Like using the restroom by yourself is almost unheard of for mothers across this country.
Right. But I'm not sure that children even have that capacity. Just looking at like even their psychological development, especially young children, they are all about me, 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 me.
Oh,
And so again, boundaries are for you, not for them. I think a lot of times we think that people should, quote unquote, treat us the way that we would treat them or have the same
Right.
courtesy. But that's when it's our job to say, here's my boundary. And I am really wonderful at the ignore game. I love
Yeah.
babies because I never ever have to raise my voice. I never have to spank kids. I just ignore them and they instantly get in line, you know? And so it's okay to get what you need. And like I said, with everything, there certainly is balance, but I'm sure that if you had the moment for yourself to decompress, then it certainly would be a lot easier than to say, yay, it's family time and do something as a family and actually want to be involved versus feeling like everything you do is about family.
Yes. And I like that you said that, boundaries are for you. And I think that's the surest way to be disappointed is to
Mhm.
place the responsibility for whatever you're feeling or whatever you need on someone else. Uh,
Absolutely. Expectation is the root of disappointment.
yes, I totally agree. So like, like after our call is over, I'm gonna take my few minutes to kind of, like, because my brain's been going all day. I had a call with the client. I had a call with somebody who's interested in advertising with the podcast. And then I was ripping and running, getting food together. So like I still haven't had my moments, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
that's what last week when I had my quote unquote bad day, it was that feeling that made me react negatively because I was like, it's like the me inside that's just screaming, like, just give me a few, you know, for me to listen to some music or meditate or just breathe, you
Mhm.
know, and
Absolutely.
a moment without that responsibility because as a creative my brain is like all the time going, ideas are like constantly showing up. Of course not all of them are for me, and sometimes I wish I had like a bank I could just put them in and say, hey, anybody can come and grab out of here. But
Mhm.
I just
Absolutely.
need those minutes to clear everything so that I can say, okay, now let's go watch the movie, or things like that. So I mean, that's something that I'm definitely, like I said, I'm working on. And I really commend you for working with your clients on that because I saw something the other day that said,
And while you're looking for that, I do want to just say, I certainly understand where you're coming from, and a lot of clients come to me with the same exact problem that they have placed others first in their life for so long that they don't even know where to begin. And so, really, what I would say is, I think that's where the importance of daily rituals comes in.
right,
Being able to start your day fully with intention. One thing I have my clients do is actually set an intention for every single day.
mm,
And decide what their action step is for that intention and build in meditation, certainly build in gratitude. And so even if it, again, going back to getting home and instantly having to jump into mommy mode, even if it's something as simple as you wake up before the kids, you set out the plan for your day, you set your intention, and then maybe you take breaks. When I still worked for an employer, I absolutely utilized my breaks. And while I was salaried, this is my time.
mm,
So I made sure that I took my breaks for me and I didn't run errands on my breaks. Every now and then I would have to, but I would make sure that I use that time to focus on what I wanted. During the car ride, I actually had to shift my whole perspective of the car ride. And so I stopped listening to music. Every now and then I would listen to some Beyonce because a good little twerk ain't never hurt nobody.
okay,
But okay. I would play something relaxing. And if I found myself upset about the traffic, again going back to gratitude, I would be thankful that this slowdown was preventing me from whatever accident. A lot of times, the slowdown is because there's an accident or there's something that has happened. Well, I'm thankful that I wasn't in that. I'm thankful that this slowdown is preventing me from being in the next one. And like really allowing myself to use that time, maybe using it to plan out the meal for the night or using it like to really just get my thoughts together so that as I walked into my next role of, parent or whatever that thing is that you have to do when you get home, it just makes it easier to transition because you're not still amped up
Right.
from being at work, being in traffic. And just those little tiny tweaks were really helpful. Listening to subliminals on the ride home, listening to audible books, listening to inspirational speeches, anything that allows you to pour into you, because it's easy to pour into you, but again, we have to give from the overflow. So we have to make sure that our cup doesn't have holes in it.
Mm. So you just gonna preach?
I mean, I'm just saying while you're looking for the meme and stuff.
I found it, but that was a word though. You got to make sure your cup doesn't have holes in it. Oh, okay. So this is what it says. So the meme says, "I'm so thankful that I didn't end up with what I thought I wanted." But here's the caption that she wrote. The universe says, "I promise I will give you everything your heart desires, but you got to let go of every person, place, and thing that doesn't serve you anymore."
Mm.
She says, "Are you sure?" And then the universe says, "I am if you are." So that just took me back to what you said about how you sit down with your clients and you guys first do your list on shifting the energy, because it's just balancing it out, making sure that your energy is you being used to serve you. So I know that we have to wrap up our call. This has been a great discussion, and I really appreciate you coming on. I would love to talk to you again if you have time.
Absolutely. And I know that we need to have your call. So I welcome you and anyone who's listening to schedule a call with me. I'm certainly not one who's like, schedule a call, I can change your life. But what I can do is help you change your life. And
Yeah.
so, just based on this discussion, I know that there are a number of areas that you would certainly benefit from putting yourself first. So I look forward to our discussion.
Yes. Okay. So tell everybody how they can find you and how they can schedule a call if they want to.
Yes, ma'am. So I am on all the socials at Benir Pierre, BenirPierre. You can schedule a personal call with me at bit.ly/Benir Pierre, BenirPierre. And I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Yes, of course. I'm really excited. I'm glad that we connected, and I know that the next time I talk to you, you're going to be like, "I'm sorry, I have to hurry up and get off. I have to talk to Oprah in a few minutes."
I receive it. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you're going to be like, "I have to go do my conversation in ballet. I can't talk right now."
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that was this week's episode. I hope you loved that conversation with Benir. She was really great. I really liked her, and I really liked that she was able to kind of tap into, I guess, the wavelength that I was on. Last week was, I wouldn't say it was a tough week, but I mean, it was a week. I've been going through this period of transition for a while. I'm doing shadow work, just digging into kind of the things that make me tick. So it was cool that she was able to kind of just jump on that with me. I didn't have to try to change too much of what I was feeling at the time, because right before we had that conversation, I had listened to some personal development in the car, and I was kind of in a space of, well, how do I continue to be positive? And then when she mentioned gratitude, that was it. So thanks again for listening, and don't forget to follow her and book with her if you guys are interested in coaching, because she does know her stuff. I think you know that by now after listening. If you listen to the whole episode, you know that. All right, so don't forget to follow me at MS Creative AF, at Between Us Girls Podcast, and everywhere else. I'm just Between Us Girls Podcast or Between Us Girls the Podcast. Please be paying attention to what I'm doing, because I'm making a lot of great changes, and I don't want you guys to miss anything Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter because eventually you'll have a regular note there. All right. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.